Good afternoon. Excuse me. Good evening. Happy Wednesday. I hope you all are doing well. Thank you for joining us again for Workforce Wednesday. We are so excited this evening to have such an awesome treat for you guys. I spoke to you guys last month and we were highlighting and I was sharing out that we were going to have some folks from the Black Employee Network for Amazon come on and share with us some of their career experiences and opportunities over at Amazon. And so tonight we have Mr. Stanley Coleman, who has over 18 years in numerous supply chain roles in the consumer electronics and consumer packaging goods space. He grew up in Detroit and then moved to Texas to earn a bachelor's of science and a master's of science in chemical engineering from Prairie View and Texas A&M. His hobbies, y'all, include skiing, cycling, cooking, volunteering, and volunteering with Habitat for Humanity. And I'm going to add volunteering with Q.
There we go. There we go.
Volunteering with Q. So if we can just give some snaps and some claps for Mr. Coleman for donating his time this evening to share out with us some just his path and also all the great things he has to say about Amazon after. Yeah, so without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Coleman. Thanks for joining us.
Excellent. Excellent. So before we jump into it, uh, we just mentioned that I was from Detroit, Michigan, and I'd be remiss to not mention that I'm a avid Lions fan, Detroit Lions fan, and I'm especially looking forward to the rematch this year, where we're going to get to put up a 50 piece on the 49ers. So anyway, that's yet to be determined. Um, I I did come here for a special reason, and it was to talk a little bit about my experiences at Amazon, as well as hopefully um, share share some of the actually kind of complete the circle. 'Cause I remember when I was in a similar seat with that you guys are in now. I was in high school, sitting in a little musty room in Detroit, right by the freeway, and somebody came in and was talking about these jobs in engineering, jobs in science and math, and it caught my eye, and I would say the rest is history. It helped kind of plant the seed to where I am now. I'm going to jump into this here. I have a couple slides. I'm going to try and keep these brief, but I wanted to share this with you just a little bit about my journey. So as mentioned, I was from Detroit, Michigan, and when I was young, I said, "Hey, I want to get into oil and gas." I remember pumping gas for my mom at the gas station, and just having that curiosity about, where does this come from? And it was probably around my senior year when I applied to Prairie View. Prairie View A&M is a historically black college and university just outside of Houston, Texas. And I made that big leap to go down to Texas. I fell in love with Texas. I actually got a master's degree in chemical engineering as well, out of Texas A&M. And after I left Texas A&M, well, actually, while I was at Texas A&M, I took a class in grain science. It was part of my research. My research was pretty cool. It was about like turning food scraps into usable fuels that we could um, just substitute for some of the fossil fuels that we were using. It can be converted into acids. It's all kind of cool stuff. But I took a class in grain science to just get a little bit more depth on how those food scraps could be used as a nutrient source to fuel the reactions. And when I was in that, I just kind of fell in love with it, grain science. And I said, and fell in love with it because um, this is like something, it's like food. I mean, we eat food all the time, and, kind of having a deeper understanding of what that's all about. And so I ended up going to General Mills. I was at General Mills. I started in their rotational program, and it was called it was basically where you got a taste of all the different disciplines. I was able to do a role in human resources, and then I went over to continuous improvement. Did a stint in engineering, where I was I operated a twin screw extruder, and kind of simply put, that's the piece of equipment that makes yummy cereals like Count Chocula and Reese's Puff and a number of other ones. Just one quick aside: when I went on my first interview, it was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, And I went to the plant that actually makes blueberry. I don't know if y'all know blueberry and frankenberry, but it's a lovely artificial fruit flavor and smell. But just smelling that in the crisp, cool air and seeing the backdrop of mountains, it was just beautiful. But before I got to that, it was I was able to also do a role in supply chain operations and manufacturing, and that's really where I found my passion. And over the years from there, I was able to get a number of different roles in supply chain manufacturing operations. And really, the thing that kept me in that was that I was able to interact with people. I think that whether it be uh, maintenance techs to operators on the production floor, just on and on. It was just the staff and engineering staff. It was just the type of interaction that really fueled my passion and it made me excited about going into work every day. So I left General Mills and then went on to Clorox. I spent about 8 years at Clorox in a number of different supply chain roles, and I joined Amazon about 2.5 years ago. And it was interesting. It was like every almost 10 years, I was reinventing myself with a new company, and hopefully I'll stay with Amazon or at least in the consumer electronics area as long as possible. And so with that, I was able to well within my current role, I am a technical program manager now, TPM, focusing mainly on infrastructure. And what that means is that when we come up with these glorious ideas, we have to figure out a way to scale that um, so that millions of people can have and enjoy those. And hopefully you guys can see my screen. It has a touch of some of the other companies and things that I've worked on over the years. And I can't move on without acknowledging the frat Alpha Phi Alpha. I am a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, and so for those in school looking to go to school or even in past school and looking into getting in grad chapters, shout out to the Alphas um, and um, and the programming that they serve the communities with. And then just one other thing, the National Society of Black Engineers was actually another fundamental organization that helped me with my growth, and I'm going to circle back to that on a future slide. All right, but any questions or such before we move on?
What's been your favorite company thus far?
Yeah, yeah. So that's a tough one. Um, but I got to say, so I had the pleasure of working at Caterpillar, the Caterpillar company, and it was in Peoria, Illinois. And I would say that was really just an exciting time of my life. That was like in my 20s. I'm 40 plus now, but back then, I mean, it kind of took me back to a early stage in life when I was playing with trucks and enjoying, you know, digging holes in my cousin's backyard, and so it took me back to a happy place for just some childhood experiences, and then at the same time I was able to see the scale of equipment that powers the world, from the diesel engines to the track type trailers and loaders. I seen equipment that was, I mean, like the wheels were double my height. It's like a 10-foot wheel, and just to see the scale of operations, that was a fun role and fun time for me.
I see there's a question in the chat that says, what does Caterpillar do? Like, what are they known
Yeah,
for?
yeah. So Caterpillar is it's a mining and machining company. So they really took their stake in this is, I don't know if it's a 100-year-old company, but it's definitely been around for a while. But they do a lot around mining, agriculture and farming, and then just the municipal construction. You kind of think of it as a construction company. They're the ones that go in um, and clear that dig, like if you're building a skyscraper in Sacramento, you're going to need somebody to haul to scoop up all of that soil and dirt, haul it to somewhere to dump, and then also to their cranes and their equipment would be the ones that actually help put that structure together. So yeah, think of them as just really the first touch whenever you're thinking of a building project. Cool. Keep the questions flowing. I love it. Um, so I want to talk a little bit more about my job now. And at Amazon, we do what is called work backwards. And so we work backwards to develop new products. And so when you're working backwards, you think about the end goal, and then you look at the second to last step, and then the third to last step, all the way back to the beginning or the first step of an initiation. And I want you to think about building your career in that same vein, where you think about, hey, I want to retire from my working and professional life at X years old, and I want to live this type of comfort in my life, uh, thereabouts and all the way through. And so you can think about, okay, well, what does it take what kind of job actually helps me get to that? And it's not always all about money. I think that there's levels of flexibility in your job. Some people are able to work remote or have a flexible work life. Interestingly enough, right after this call, I'm actually going to be jumping on another meeting for my job, and and actually last week I was in China and in London, and it was literally 40 hours. I spent 40 hours on a flight last on air flight last year, um, and for me that was one of the things that is exciting. And I enjoy to travel. I enjoy seeing new lands and building supply chains out of zero. And so that made sense for me, despite the compensation. So I definitely want folks to be open minded about what that end state is. But again, as you were working backwards, what are those steps that need to happen? And I kind of sum it up our development or working backwards process in three steps. Um, I did. We identify, basically think about what the customer wants at the end state. Then we innovate. We come up with a creative way of getting there, and then we implement that plan. And so I think that it's very applicable to you as well. So speaking about identifying, I mentioned, like, what are you passionate about? What are those things that you can do? What are you good at? What kind of skills do you have? What's your education level? I remember back when I was I was actually, my mom was a teacher in the public school. She's since retired. But we did an experiment where me and my brother came in and we talked to one of her classes, and we did an experiment around. We basically made ice cream, and we talked about the thermodynamics in making ice cream. But when we were sitting around enjoying our ice cream, we talked about what were those two classes that you're most passionate about or excited about, and then we mapped careers to that. I want you to do the same, and challenge those folks around you, parents and mentors, and even us who join the call. Hey, I'm good at math and I like gym. What's a good career path for me? Challenge us to help you discover that. But anyway, that's all about identifying, and I kind of stepped into innovating as you're understanding that path, building a education and skill path to get to those careers, and then most importantly, implement. I challenge folks to build a resume, write a resume for that role, and I actually want to do a quick aside. If I could, let me just try and let me unshare screen, and I'm going to jump to another screen. Hopefully this works. Hang on here. This is all. It's always tricky to do sheets on the fly, but nevertheless, we'll get there. What I wanted to share is, here it is. Let me jump back in here. Okay. And so hopefully you can see my screen right now. And I'm going to go to Amazon.com. And this is something I challenge everybody to do. And ignore the search stuff. It's Halloween and I got a shared account with my family. But at the bottom of the page, there's a section for careers. And I want everybody to do this. Go on Amazon.com, scroll down to the bottom, and click on careers. And when you get there, there's a field where you can find jobs. And for location, let's just put California for now. There we go. And you can not limit yourself to just California. Like I mentioned before, I was always interested in going to Texas when I was young. But there's an opportunity where you can click on your experience, and let's just search less than a year, and we'll also search for let's just add California to the search. And what you can, and I'm looking over here. I got three screens in front of me, so never mind that. But what you'll see is there's tons of jobs in here, um, and there's quite an array of different skills and competencies that they're looking for. Um, let's just look at and Amazon is so vast. Like I was working on engineering products. I was working on medical devices just recently. But within each job description, there are key responsibilities. This tells you what you're going to do in that job, and then there's basic qualifications. And this is what you're going to use to map your development and career plan to those specific type roles. I challenge you to do that. I challenge you to be broad in these type of roles, and I think that you can definitely find your way to your passion in your future career role. Any questions about that process or searching for roles or um, great. Yeah, I see the comments jumping up. Thanks for that. Thank you for that.
So would you say that there are, for someone who, and I don't know if you know this or not, but someone who may only have maybe just some pretty entry level type
Yeah,
experience,
yeah.
would you say that there are roles even for them at Amazon if they don't have maybe any sort of bachelor's degree or master's, maybe high school diploma, maybe just some different types of skills that they can apply? Would you say that there are positions for them at Amazon?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was actually talking to a person who was an entry level. They actually had experience at Starbucks. They worked at Starbucks, and then they actually were able to find a role um, at our cafe. So I mean, it was like literally the exact type of experience. It was a company called Gref, our global infrastructure. But they started there, and actually, she ended up getting a broader role with Microsoft. She left Amazon pretty quickly, and then went to Microsoft and moved into a more facilities type of role. And so, like one of the beauties with Amazon is that they don't hold you to where you come in at. If you're showing the competencies for the next role, they'll test you at that, and they'll move you up. And as much as I'd love for you to stay with Amazon as long as possible, I mean, there's always other companies that are chomping at the bit for folks who can show that they've done well at Amazon. So don't let that stop you. I'm partial. Like I said, I'm an engineering background, I lean into that. But there's always options to step in, uh, build your skills, build your capabilities, and then just grow from there. I
Very
think that's a.
nice.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say very nice that they can enter at, like you said, doing any type of job if it's stepping in as a
Yeah,
barista, but if you're showing an ability to do something else and a desire to do something else, that's a possibility. So that's good to know, folks. So make sure that you click that link and check out what Amazon has because there's upward mobility.
absolutely. I'm going to jump back over, and I know I might be over time. Maybe give me a time check, somebody. How am I doing?
You got about you got about 10 minutes.
Oh, okay, I got that's plenty of time. One of the one of the most interesting things I learned with Amazon is the value of 1 minute, like especially between meetings. So I remember in previous roles in companies, I would, um, we would finish a call or finish a meeting or something, and um, I would, you know, kind of veg out or take a break until the next one, and whether it be 1 or 2 minutes before. But yeah, I think that it helped me discover a different level of efficiency, partially out of necessity, but also because there's just so much value in time. So all that to say, thank you for your time today, and I'm definitely looking forward to answering any additional questions you guys might have. But I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about this is actually a book that um, someone shared with me, and I think I know that it was transformational in my life. I want to challenge folks. I got a lot of challenges for everyone. I hope you guys are okay with that. But this is my last challenge, maybe. Um, but I read this book called by Harvey Coleman. My last name is Coleman, but this is no relation. Um, there was a this is when I was an intern actually at Shell. There was a woman who was she was a full-time employee. She was probably in the later part of her career or maybe midstream in her career, and she came by, she waved and said hi, and said, "Hey, I'll be right back." And then she came back like minutes later and handed me a book. And we engaged in small talk, and I ended up putting the book in the drawer. And she said, "Hey, that's my book. I want my book back. I gave it to you because I want you to read it right now. Stop what you're doing, read this right now, and then give it back to me." And this book it couldn't have been more than like 200 pages, uh, but I literally sat there and read that whole book. I probably got at least halfway through the first day, and then the second day, I finished the book. And like I say, it was very transformational for me. It introduced three concepts. It introduced a concept called PI, which is performance, image, and exposure. And a lot of times we end up thinking that the way that how hard we work, our performance is what determines how we excel and grow within an organizational structure. And I want to actually turn that mindset and actually tell you, if you were to rank that on a scale of 100, 100%, performance actually is probably worth 10% if you were to look at how that um, uh, how that translates into how you excel into an organization. Why is that? Because everybody's coming as high performers, and that's just your entry ticket, right? So it leaves these two other items on here: image and exposure. And I'd love for folks ignore the percentages in there. Obviously, that shows 100% within the verbal, nonverbal, and tone. But I want to challenge folks. So I want to ask folks. I want to ask folks if someone can share or guess how much is image, and how much is that in how you excel in an organization. But I'd love to see some comments in the chat. 40%. Okay. 100%. 100%. Okay. Okay. One more. I'll wait for one more. If anyone's sitting on their hands, get it in there. 75%. Thank you. Thank you for participating in that. Um, image is actually 50. Image is actually 30%. That's 30% of the equation. Okay. And what that means is image is a combination of your nonverbals, your verbals, your tone of voice. The interesting thing about humans is that we judge a book by its cover. How do you present yourself? What are those nonverbal things? What are those nonverbal messages that you send and that people are receiving on a nonstop basis? Are you um, are you wearing a collared shirt when you're going into a professional environment? Are you wearing a suit and tie? Is that what the environment calls for? Are you chewing gum while you're talking? Are you got your clothes all hanging up off you? Like I remember this guy, he came through, he had his glasses, he came through, he had his sunglasses on. He was out doing all kind of stuff, right? And we were like, he can't be taken serious. But he was able to switch that around, and then he actually ended up presenting himself with a more formal demeanor, and we all leaned forward and as we got to that point. So those nonverbal cues are huge. Verbal, how well you're able to communicate. Are you able to inflect your voice when you're trying to make a point? Are you how well versed are you with English and the more formal English when you're in that environment? So that plays a big way. And actually, tone of voice. I guess that's the final 10%. But I get a little excited there. Um, and so so that's image. Um, and so that's 10% on performance, 30% on image, and that leaves 60% for exposure. And I tell you, put yourself out there. You guys have already taken a huge step in being here today. Don't stop here. Keep doing it. Uh, Look for opportunities to expand your professional network. Uh, Play around with it, put yourself out there. Exactly. Look for opportunities to join. I remember when I was in high schools, the NAACP Youth Council and the Urban League were some of those things. I was actually in a fraternity, like a pre-college fraternity, and interacted with some folks there. I was in an acting club. I think that those are some things for pre-college. If you're a professional, there's tons of networking events. I was actually plugged in. I went to a networking event that I found on Instagram. I just searched it in the Bay. Actually, it's either an Instagram or Eventbrite. But I found one and was able to network with tons of folks who were uh, in black. They called it the Black Tech. It was Black Tech group. But there's also different groups that for whatever fits your need. So again, so as you think about that, and I say I want to just kind of circle back to how why that was so transformational to me. There was several instances in my career and life where I was at the verge of quitting because I wasn't seeing the results that I was expecting or that I felt like I deserved or wanted. And every time I get to that point in my career, I pull this book out, I read it, and it helps me reframe what it actually takes. And as I mentioned, that those were when I saw the most momentum and growth in my career. So uh, definitely, look for this book on Amazon Books or any media. It might even be on Spotify if folks have that. But anyway, maybe I'll stop there. I'll open the gates for any additional questions. And like I say, hey, this was a great time. I'm happy that I was able to spend some time with everyone here.
There was a question in the chat earlier. It said, what helped you to recognize your interests and how did you know how did you know what major or career to focus on when you were
Yeah,
young?
yeah. I didn't know. So when I was in the 11th grade, I was I was steadfast on going to Michigan State, and I was wanting to go to and I wanted to be a veterinarian. And it wasn't until honestly, I don't even know. I remember what it was. In that same Urban League meeting, the person was talking about compensation. What job pays the most? And on that list that he shared, chemical engineering was on the top of it. And that's why I said, oh, done. I want to be a chemical engineer. And so I deliberately did not share um, those compensation because there's so much more. And I learned maybe the hard way, just that compensation is just one element in the fulfillment of your life, fulfillment in your life's fulfillment. yeah. So and that was actually my 12th grade year. 12th grade year, I made the switch to chemical engineering.
You said I have to go where the money resides. What's on the
Yeah.
paper? What's in the top? Put
It,
me
it,
in the game, coach.
exactly. And the funny thing is that I don't even do chemical engineering anymore. Like I haven't done chemical engineering uh, one day in my professional career. Ever since then, I've done operations, manufacturing. I'm doing electrical. I'm doing more electrical engineering now than I do chemical engineering. I think that you just kind of you find your way. I think that um, a key attribute is to just be a lifelong learner. Look for opportunities to learn and grow, whether it be like the traditional books type stuff, school type stuff where you're doing that, or just asking yourself questions. Hey, I saw in the news that there's a the levels of greenhouse gases are going through the roof, and it's causing impact on the wind patterns in Brazil, which is causing uh, uh, less rain or in some areas and more rain in other areas. Why is that happening? And you know what? I'm actually really excited about that. And you might find your way into a ton of career paths, so from um, meteorology to farming or agriculture type roles, depending on what's most interesting on that front. So yeah, like I say, I'm still learning. I would say that I've moved to a new program. Actually, it was in July, August timeframe, where I'm doing a completely different skill set than I was the prior 6 months.
Well, I learned a lot, and it sounds like you've been able to use your skill set that you've picked up through the different companies and kind of been able to reinvent
Yeah.
yourself and kind of find the role that best suits you. So that's a gem all in itself. Is there anything in addition? Is there any like any last minute words you would want to share? Like if there's something that someone could have told you or something that someone told you in your career that has just kind of carried you through, what would that be?
Yeah, yeah. So much good advice over the years. I'd probably say um, it really starts with that first concept of working backwards. Start with the end in mind. Um, Put yourself out there. Find mentors and people who do those kind of things. There's been tons of times when people reached out to me on LinkedIn and just asked me a question or two, and I was happy enough to do that. I offer that to this whole group as well. You know what I'm saying? Look me up, Stanley Coleman. I'll be happy to share with that. Um, but and then just lastly, um, always look for opportunities to refine, reinvent yourself. And where you are now is not where you're going to be in the future. Look for ways to continue to grow always.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Listen, he said
Absolutely.
it. He said, begin with the end in mind. So, where do you want to end up and work from there? And so,
Yeah.
if we could just give Mr. Coleman a round of applause, you could drop it in the
Mhm.
chat. You can give him an emoji. We sincerely appreciate your time and that you just kind of stopping through and just answering all my phone
Of
calls and
course,
all
of
the
course.
emails and just being so willing to, excuse me, and being so willing to just hop on with us. Are there any additional questions? Please drop them in the chat. I will also be sharing Mr. Coleman's LinkedIn. He said we can search him up, or if he's cool
Yeah.
with his email address, I'll share that with you all as well.
I
Thank.
I don't check email.
Oh, he doesn't check email. So I'll make sure that we can share
Hit
his
me on
info.
LinkedIn. Yeah, hit a DM. I get back with you. Absolutely. Thanks all. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you, Mr. Coleman. If you don't have any questions, then I will bid you a good night. If not, I'll hang back so I can answer your question.